Good morning, Mets fans, and happy Wednesday. Welcome to Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and interestingly, I recorded a video on Monday, and I forgot to post it. So I had a lot of fun things to say about the fact that that over the weekend the Mets took their second consecutive series victory, defeating the Marlins 2 out of 3 after defeating the Reds 2 out of 3. Monday night, the Mets beat the Yankees, so they were on something of a roll, won 5 of their last 7 games, rolling into Baltimore yesterday to kick off a 2-game set with the Orioles, the worst team in baseball by any measure. And, of course, the Mets lost their 3rd straight game to the Orioles. So I don't really remember everything I talked about on Monday, but I want to touch on a little bit of it today, and I'll talk a little bit about last night's game and look at tonight's game as well on today's video. On Monday night, Jacob deGrom continued to solidify his case for the Cy Young award. He dominated the Yankees. He struck out 12 across 6 innings of work, 6 strong innings of work, as always, for Jake. But the funny part about his outing was that the Mets scored runs for him. Amazing. It seems like that never happens, but the Mets did score some runs for Jake on Monday, and he rewarded the team with a victory. Funny how that can happen. When you score for the best pitcher in baseball, you get a win. It's amazing. But the Mets had this little mini roll going, and you're thinking, boy, 2 games with the Orioles, they stink. The Mets owe them 2 games because, of course, the Mets dropped 2 to the Orioles. Giving the Orioles their first series win of the season back when it happened. And you're thinking, last night the Mets are going to start a 2-game set. They're going to get even and keep their winning ways going. And then you realized, oh geez, Jason Vargas is on the mound. Well, lo and behold, if we've learned anything about Jason Vargas from this year, the only team he can pitch well against is the Baltimore Orioles. Last night, Vargas pitched the longest outing of his season, pitched well enough to earn a win, gave up 2 runs across 6 innings of work, and of course the bullpen, which had been so solid, blew the game open, and the Mets lost. But Vargas pitched okay, so I guess the message for next year is Vargas will be a great addition to the rotation so long as the Mets are playing the Orioles. But the one thing I'll say about Vargas is, we know he stinks. Right? It is what it is. The Mets have him under contract for next year, and at this point, they are going to keep him in the rotation and keep him on the team going into 2019 as a pitcher, 1 through 5 somewhere. Obviously not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and he probably shouldn't be 5 either. But what I will say in his defense, if there's anything even defensible about the way he's performed this year, I will say that it'll be nice to see, first of all, if he stays healthy for the remainder of the season, it'll be nice to see if he can put together some semblance of quality starts, if he's able to get a spot in the rotation every 5th day. One thing that Mickey Callaway did mention a week or so ago was that he felt bad about the fact that Vargas really was never able to get into a rhythm this season because he's skipped starts and he's been on the DL and he's been ineffective and whatnot. The last start where he gave up the 3 runs that were attributed to him, at least in the first inning against the Reds, he threw 14 pitches because of the rain. And so that was sort of Mickey's way of saying, it's tough to be really that hard on him. It's really not, but that was what Mickey was sort of getting at. And maybe he's right. Maybe if Vargas does get some consistency in his appearances, he might round into the form that we expected him to be, which was, never a good pitcher. He was going to be a league average pitcher who gave you innings, gave you some length, was able to provide that stabilizing force at the back end of the rotation. Maybe he'll show that he's going to be that. Maybe he will. Maybe not. But last night was certainly something to build upon, and I hope, because we're paying him, I hope he can provide some value going forward, because otherwise that money is spent and we're never going to see it again. The other thing I want to just touch on really briefly, and then I'm going to wrap things up because I don't have much else to say, is David Wright. David Wright played in a rehab game on Monday, played 5 innings, had 2 or 3 plate appearances, I don't recall. I know he struck out twice. He hit a fly ball in one of his at-bats. He didn't get to throw the ball from third base, but he did make a put-out in the field, catching a fly ball or a pop-up or something. But, you know, the bottom line with all of this David Wright stuff is heart. I want to talk about heart. We've long known that David Wright is the heart and soul of this team. And I don't know that you can find a player throughout all of Major League Baseball who has more heart than David Wright. David Wright is making an attempt at a comeback, and he doesn't have to be doing this. He gets paid no matter what, right? He's going to get his money that, let's be honest, he's earned because of the years he's given the Mets. And you can argue the value and the intelligence behind the contract that he was given several years ago, and discuss the fact that it was a wasted investment. And you know, a lot of these long-term deals are. It's why we're seeing fewer and fewer teams executing these long-term type deals. But the bottom line here with David Wright is, as I said, he could just say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not even going to try to come back. I'm just going to sit home and collect my paycheck. But David Wright won't do that because he has too much heart. He has too much heart to say, I'm going to just forget about this. He's pushing himself to get back on the field and play for a team that is terrible. And he's doing it for love of the game. And boy, oh boy, is that ever the sort of thing that a role model as an athlete should be wearing front and center as a badge of honor. I don't want to talk badly about Cespedes, right? But I don't know that Yoenis Cespedes has 1/100th the amount of heart that David Wright has. Because Yoenis Cespedes doesn't seem to have any desire, and maybe I'm full of shit when I'm saying this, but he doesn't seem to have any desire to push himself to get back to where the team can you know, actually benefit from him being on the field. We don't even know if David Wright's going to be anything worth anything when he comes back. We don't know that. But the fact that he wants to come back, that he is trying his absolute hardest to get himself back on the field, boy, that to me is just a phenomenal thing. And it's something that every athlete should strive to be and strive to have. The heart and soul that David Wright has, the love of this game that David Wright has, that he wants to get back on the field. It's amazing to me, and boy, I'm sure that I'm not the only one who says that if that day comes, and I know we all hope that that day comes, but if that day comes, I'm going to be at Citi Field for his return. And it'll probably also validate something I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 months, that Jose Reyes is only on the roster for the feel-good reunion on field of Wright and Reyes manning the left side of the infield one last time in the blue and orange. And again, I'm going to be there. I don't care. I'm going to the game no matter what. So that's going to wrap it up for today. The Mets finish off their 2-game set with the O's tonight. So I'll try to come back tomorrow and discuss that and recap it as best as I can, if I'm able to. No promises. Tomorrow the Mets kick off a 5-game series with the Philadelphia Phillies, starting with a doubleheader, the first game of which will be on Facebook Watch. Hooray. But that's tomorrow, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see if the Mets can take one game from the worst team in baseball tonight, with Zach Wheeler on the mound, looking for his 6th consecutive victory as a pitcher. Go Zach. That'll wrap it up again for today. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already doing so, at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.